point, I'd like to invite the moderator, Martin Fair, to start off our time together this evening.
Thank you, Isabel. Do you know when you used to meet in halls, then the introducer, Isabel, would tell you what to do in the event of a fire, where to leave and where to marshal? My message is this: if there's a fire in the Church of Scotland, then run towards it. We need to be set on fire absolutely right now. So anyway, just add that in, Isabel, to your introductory remarks. Folks, give me a little minute, would you? I was listening to a song before we got started. Kind of just want to finish it over. Falling in love with someone, ever fallen in love with someone, ever fallen in love with someone you shouldn't have fallen in love with. Sorry, I needed that little blast. That was the Buzzcocks, the most famous song, Ever Fallen in Love with Someone You Shouldn't Have Fallen in Love With. And it's part of my story because it was the first ever band that I went to see. I was 15 years of age, and that was the benefit of growing up. I've been born in the mid-60s. You came into your teens in the late 70s and the early 80s, and we had some brilliant music to listen to. And growing up in the south side of Glasgow, all the gigs that I went to were in the famous Glasgow Apollo. Very happy memories, and not least that first ever gig by the Buzzcocks. Then they closed the Apollo. Rightly so. It was an absolute flea pit and probably would have failed every possible fire safety, health safety test that could be. But we loved it in its day, but it outlived its day. Then, if you wanted to go to gigs, you went to the SEC in Glasgow. It was kind of a bit of an aircraft hangar, to be honest, but that's the way it was. Then, or now, if you want to go and see a big band in Glasgow, then you're going to the Hydro. Yeah, times change and the places where gigs happen change. Last week, I was, as moderator, visiting in the Presbytery of Perth. And one of the highlights of that was a visit to the small community of St Meadows, which lies somewhere between Perth and Dundee, really on the banks of the River Tay. They have there an ancient site of an ancient cross-slab standing stone, which dates to the 700s. And almost certainly a church was built on that site and served as a base for Christian worship for centuries that followed. And then in the latter part of the 1700s, they declared that that old church was no longer fit for purpose. My goodness, they were radical back in the 18th century, weren't they? And so here's what they did. They built a brand new church, and it was dedicated in 1799. Well, a few years ago, the local Christian community again got to that point of deciding that that old building was no longer fit for purpose. And so they have built a brand new, stunning, multi-function building in their community. And it is a treat to go and visit it. It really is. It's only, I don't know, a couple of 100 yards from the old church, which still stands there, I guess, as a memory. But you wouldn't want to go there now when you see the new one. It has sports facilities, indoor and now outdoor. It's got a brilliant cafe. It's got soft play for younger children. It's got the most comfortable seating arrangements. It's got gardens outside, places where people are going to grow vegetables organically. I mean, it's got everything going for it. It really does. You see, things are always evolving. We sometimes take that word change and we think it's the replacing of one status quo with a new status quo. It's not. It's something that is just happening all around us all of the time. It's just that sometimes the church has been so slow on the uptake in terms of embracing what is going to happen anyway. I talked about going to the Apollo when I was younger to go to gigs and bands and so on. Do you know how you got a ticket in those days? You went into the centre of Glasgow, you queued outside a shop, sometimes through the night. The very first time I went to see U2, I queued through the night for my ticket the next morning. And even then, the queue was already around the block several times. Nowadays, Ticketmaster, job's an easy one, straightforward. It's not just the places that have changed, it's how we do things that have changed. Let me give you one further example. I spoke about this to friends last week. One of my favourite places to visit in Glasgow, that's where I come from, by the way, that's why I'm banging on about it so much, is the Glasgow Tenement Flat. It's a museum. You can go in it and you can see what they lived like away back in the, I don't know, the 40s or the 50s, I don't know exactly. But do you know what? I love it because it sort of reminds me of my granny and what her life would have been like. So it's a great place to go and visit as a museum piece and as, hey, the way it was. But I wouldn't want to live in a flat like that now. I'm quite comfortable with central heating and with a toilet actually in the house and with a shower and with a gas cooker and all of those things that we consider nowadays to be pretty standard. But there's still something about church that wants to take us back and to live in what was rather than what is. We could look at almost every aspect of church life and see vestiges of that. But I wonder if how we've tried to do work among children and young people still very much belongs in those days. You know, Sunday school launched in the middle of the 1700s to begin with, partly actually about reading and writing for kids who were missing out. But of course, Sunday school took on very much a Christian backdrop. And Sunday school worked brilliantly for so long. I remember my happy days in Sunday school when I was a kid. I still remember the Sunday school leader. She was called Margaret Fowler. And I'm thankful to Margaret and for what was. But how many of our churches now are running vibrant Sunday schools? But life changed in the meantime. Everything has pretty well changed, certainly from the middle of the 1700s. So can we be a church that begins to be present in the world as it is today in terms of where we meet and how we do church? I'm confident about any changes you want to mention. I think absolutely everything you want to mention should be up for grabs about how we do church as we go forward. And here's why. Because the one thing I'm absolutely certain about is unchanging from everlasting to everlasting, and that is Jesus. I don't need any reimagining the future when it comes to Jesus because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that is my anchor. That is the solid rock. Everything else can come and go. Everything else will come and go. I was ordained in the January of 1992, and within a few months, talking to a colleague, he told me that he'd bought a word processor. And I just laughed and thought, who needs that? I'm a minister, not an accountant. So I'll be good with my pencil and pen, thank you very much, and my pad of paper. That's what I thought. Look around my study now. It's like the deck on the Starship Enterprise. There's so much technology going on now. I fly a drone, for goodness sake, to get good footage. I've got everything. I live in an Apple world. And this was the guy that said, I don't need a word processor. The way we do things has changed beyond recognition. So can we please be ready to free ourselves of so much of how we have done church? Listen, COVID has given us that gap, if you will, that possibility, that pausing point. So post-COVID isn't so much to say, now we can get back to doing things how they were. How we were doing things wasn't working. Did anybody notice? So let's free ourselves up to all the possibilities, because listen, I'm not scared of the future, no matter what you might want to propose, if I've got Jesus with me in it, because that's the one piece of stability, the one certainty that I need, and the only certainty that I need. I don't mind how we do children's work. I don't mind how we worship or when we worship. I don't mind about the music. I don't mind if there's a guild or a women's group or a BB. I don't mind any of that, because it's seasonal. And some of it comes and some of it should go, as long as I've got Jesus. Then I step forward absolutely confidently into the future. And I want us to be that way as church. Sure, there are a whole bunch of uncertainties ahead of us, questions we have not yet got answers for. But if we have Jesus, then everything else will come into place accordingly. Seek first the kingdom, and all other things shall be added. Some of you may use Lectio 365, as I do. Just a brilliant devotional aid app. And recently, if you have used it, you'll be familiar with this prayer of St. Augustine from the 5th century, the prayer. And you see, a heck of a lot's changed since St. Augustine was doing his thing. But he followed the same Jesus. And so his prayer speaks to me now absolutely as much as I believe it would have in his day. So let me draw this little part to a close by sharing this prayer from St. Augustine. It's my prayer. I hope it's yours too. Grant me, even me, dearest Lord, to know you and love you and rejoice in you. Let the love of you grow every day more and more in me, that my joy may be full in you. Amen. With the joy of the Lord in us, we can reimagine with great expectations and with hope and creativity. Let's go for it, folks.